I'd like to call this June 29th, 2021 meeting of the Strongsville Board of Education to order. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Salee?
Here.
Mr. Micco?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Hausen?
Here.
We're all present. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain three: academic achievement and growth, financial prudence and community engagement. And as always, we make all of our decisions based on those three goals and balancing those goals. Sometimes they're in competition, sometimes they work together, but we try to balance them at all time. At some point today, we'll get a short update, but as far as academic achievement is concerned, we had a great, in my opinion, a great summer school throughout the last couple of weeks. Not only did we have traditional summer school, but we had a lot of different kinds of summer school to help kids catch up from the pandemic, along with makerspace camps, etc. And I know we had more attendance than we've had in any other summer school. We also had more offerings than we've had in any other summer school, but that's a great example of academic achievement and growth. Next on our agenda is public comment. So far I have two. Stephen McIntyre. Stephen, are you here? If you approach the microphone, your name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Steve McIntyre. I live at 13156 Fairwinds Drive in Strongsville. And I'm here to talk about community engagement. And I'd like to talk specifically about, more from a qualitative point of view, the fact that we're not able to use the new tennis courts here in Strongsville. They're always locked up, tight as can be. You know, the tennis courts we have here in this community, the ones at the high school were built in the fall of 1974. They're pretty much unusable and have been for many, many years. The ones in the city, behind City Hall, were built back in 1975, and both of them are in pretty sad shape when they're almost 50 years old. No one locks up their courts like we do in this town anywhere in Northeast Ohio, or even at my old alma mater, Bowling Green. They don't lock them up there either. We play tennis all over the area, a lot of us senior citizens, where we will play in Berea. A lot of us play at Highland, who have, quite frankly, a nicer facility than we have here. I mean, quite frankly, the facility here, I mean, I can make some, you know, it's water over the dam now, but they don't lock them up in Highland. So every Thursday night and Saturday morning, I meet 3 other gentlemen from Strongsville. We all drive 20 minutes down to Highland High School and play tennis down there in the summer because we can't play in Strongsville. There's no way, what I've been told is that the whole idea behind locking up the courts and not letting the community use the courts is because it wants to be monetized, put on some kind of P&L statement. I think that's a fool's errand. Highland tried to do that. They weren't able to pull it off because there's just no way to do it. You got to look at tennis courts different than you look at your 2 turf fields, your baseball field with a grass infield, with your girls' soccer field, with your basketball courts. All these different facilities that you have, those are all team things where you can rent out your football stadium to, you know, Holy Name, or you can rent out the middle school field to Cleveland Football Club or someone like that. But you're never going to rent out the tennis courts in the summertime. I've seen girls who've climbed over the fences to rollerblade inside of there. I've talked to other kids that said that they were there because they did get special permission from the coach to use it. It's like, is that how you develop tennis players? Maybe that is how we do it nowadays here. So I just, you know, as I look at it and the fact that we have to, you must just take the nets down because no one's using them. The courts are always empty. They're just sitting there with nets on them. And we as, you know, senior citizens would, you know, you can't hurt a tennis court. You really can't. but yet, maybe that's a reason. I don't know. I know this is a one-way dump from me to you. I would just say that, you guys have done a good job. We've given you everything you've asked for from an operating funds perspective and from a physical plant bond issues as voters. The facilities here, and from what I can tell, the situation we have with the money that we're paying our employees and all that, we're as good a position we've ever been in, and it would appear to me from sitting on the sidelines, and you're to be commended for that. But this was the last piece of physical plant for sports that needed to be fixed was the tennis courts, and now they have been, and you did a wonderful job in doing it. But now you're not engaging the community, so I'll just leave it at this. As the first captain and the first #1 letterman on the tennis team back in 1975, I've talked to other alumni, and they just can't believe this is what we're faced with. We're now halfway into the summer, and we haven't heard why we can't use the tennis courts. We just know we have to leave the county to do if we want to play some tennis. So that's about all I have to say on this. Okay, thank you.
Before you run away, Stephen, what was the record when you were a senior?
My record?
Uh-huh. The
As
team
an-
record.
As an individual? I didn't care about the
Whatever you
team.
wanna
It was
share.
about me.
Whatever you want to share.
I was 6-4, but fortunately we were in the Cuyahoga Conference in those days. We played such stalwarts as Warrensville Heights and Cuyahoga Heights and people like that. So, but that was a long time
It's
ago.
cool that you're still here, and it's cool that you still want to play tennis. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, thank you.
And next is Kurt Harler. Did I say that right?
You did, thank you.
Name,
I'm Kurt Harler,
address.
12936 Falling Water here in Strongsville. In the interest of saving board time, I've been asked to speak for quite a few of the people. I don't know if y'all want to stand up or wave or whatever. There are quite a few people here who are concerned about this issue. I also have some letters that I would like to give to the board. A number of people could not make it this evening and wanted to show their support for what Steve has talked about, what I'm going to talk about. Basically, we're here today to ask the board to review the policy that requires a $50 per hour charge for the use of the tennis courts over by the Strongsville High School. What we'd like to ask is that you revise that and put in a policy that allows any responsible citizen of the city, whether senior citizen, whether student, whether new resident, to get a key upon payment of a $10 or $20 deposit and have access to those courts anytime when the high school team or a high school class is not being held. I think you'll find out that most resources that the school district has are only in jeopardy when there aren't people actively using them. Those that are going to go out and climb fences, tag things, do stuff of that nature aren't going to do it when there are responsible people playing tennis on the tennis courts. If you think back about public engagement and education, one of the basic things that any school teaches is English, great program. And eventually the schools in America realized that ESL, English as a second language for adults, was a program that needed to be implemented. Great success. What we're asking you to do is to have a kind of tennis as a second life. You've heard Steve, very humbly waited until the very end to let you know how he had done on the Strongsville tennis team. But for a lot of people, tennis is the physical outlet. It's a very active outlet. It's a very social outlet, both for men and women in this community. Unlike grass, soccer fields, or baseball fields that need to be lined, tennis court surfaces are durable. They're like basketball courts. I know that the schools used to allow the use of the basketball courts at Center, for instance. Kind of hard to ruin a tennis court unless you're an outright vandal with a jackhammer or a sledgehammer and you want to do damage. Steve mentioned earlier that most facilities in the state, whether you're looking at Baldwin Wallace, Bowling Green, the Ohio State University, go Bucks, any of those other schools and all the high schools in the area allow free public access. I have no problem with those courts being gated and locked, But the simple fact that they are being locked down and not used at all is a very big waste of $553,000 of community investment money. And I don't think that that should be allowed to continue. Right now, we're about a third of the way into the tennis season. I would hope that sometime in one of your upcoming meetings soon, that the board will reach a decision. The right decision, of course, is to allow public access to those courts. And again, I don't think anyone in this room has a problem with paying a $10 key deposit, whatever would happen to be, sign up a piece of paper so you know who's using the courts and that type of thing. Right now, as it stands, that $50 an hour charge is simply a way of telling residents that we're not welcome to use the facility. And I think that as the board, it would be a good idea if y'all revisited that policy and came to an understanding with the tennis community. I'm happy to be a contact going forward. I know Steve will, I know anyone else in the room is at your disposal if you have other questions that you want to ask. Thank you all for your time.
Kurt, thank you. I appreciate the comments. We discussed this at our last meeting. We have every intention to come to a good, happy medium. Steve, will you be ready to have more data and a recommendation by our next meeting? So Steve Breckner is our Director of Business Services, and he, I'm sorry?
Operations Manager.
Steve is our Director of Operations Management, but we asked him to do the research. We've talked before. I don't want to speak officially on behalf of the board, but our general consensus is that it's a community, a valuable thing for the community, and similar to the way we take care of the middle school field, we allow the public to use that with some restrictions just to protect it and just to make sure that our primary mission, which is educating students, is first and foremost. But I don't anticipate any big issues here, and I know we're all going to be looking forward to Steve's information, and then we can get that out to you and have a happy outcome. But the thought of not allowing the community to use a community asset, I don't think anybody supports that here. So thank you for your attention and bringing it to our attention. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, next on our agenda is recognition. Dr. Iba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. We do have one recognition tonight, so I'm going to ask outgoing PTA Council President Kaylee Helleberger to come to the podium to present the volunteer hours for this past school year. Katie?
Good evening, Mr. Micko, members of the school board and administration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I've had the privilege of serving as the council PTA president for the past 2 school years. I'm here tonight on behalf of the council PTA and all of the 9 units that serve the children, parents, and schools of Strongsville. This past year was challenging, obviously on many levels, but I first want to commend the board and administration for the hard work that you put forth this year to balance the needs and expectations and all levels of the student body and the families within guidelines that were challenging from many different regulatory bodies. A job that was impossible to please everyone, but the hard work should not go unnoticed, and the PTA thanks you. During any given year, the PTAs in Strongsville would normally be very present in the schools, whether it be bingo nights, holiday shops, book fairs, and many more student enrichment activities. And while being physically present this year wasn't an option, we saw the PTA's creativity shine. We held virtual book fairs, purchased tables so that students could sit with their classes outside, provide gift cards for grants for teachers to use for materials for classrooms, school unity t-shirts, mask lanyards, and many more helpful items and resources in the absence of being physically present in the schools. Collectively, between the council and the 9 units, we approved over $40,000 in grants to the schools, which included classroom and building materials and resources, including a new playground at Kinsner. Last month, the Strongsville PTAs also gave out 15 scholarships to our outgoing senior class, which was over $7,500 to those graduating seniors. And then also in May, we celebrated our Founders Day ceremony, which was recognizing 10 individuals that go above and beyond for the betterment of the school system. So this year, in conclusion, I'm happy to present to the board that our volunteer service hours given by our PTA members for the benefits of children, staff, and the schools of Strongsville was over 5,600 hours of time. While that's about half and much lower than it has been in past years due to COVID restrictions and event cancellations, our commitment continues to be strong, and we'll continue to serve the district in every way that we possibly can going forward. So thank you to the board and to administration for giving us the opportunity to work with you guys to make positive contributions for our students, our teachers, and the educational experience here in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, as I said earlier at another event, thank you for your leadership during such a difficult time. And 5,600 hours of volunteerism when nobody was allowed to be in the buildings except for staff is phenomenal. So thank you to all of the PTAs, units, and the volunteers for their work. We appreciate it. Mr. Micko, before we go on in the agenda, we do have a lot of new staff members that are on this agenda, and it's so awesome that so many of them came to be a part of tonight's meeting. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to recognize those that are in attendance today, and then we can go on with the rest of the agenda.
Absolutely.
So Jenny?
And we'll want to know how many of them play tennis.
All right, so we'll add that to the questionnaire. So, I just thank you for coming tonight. I always invite new staff to attend the board meetings. Some of them have been hired in like the last 24 hours, so for them to rearrange their schedules and to be here we really appreciate seeing you and meeting you in person and getting to know you again. And sometimes through the interview process, I meet you for about 25 minutes, so I'm always like, okay, tell me again who you are. We've hired over 40 staff members just in the last month. And so I just have to commend all of our interview teams and everybody that's put the time and the effort to really search out the very best candidates for these positions. And like you said, many of them are here tonight. So I want to start with Lauren Scotta to come up to I'm going to ask her to come up to the podium. She is going to be our new gifted coordinator for our district. And Lauren, she has a very interesting background. She was a former gifted intervention specialist, so she knows firsthand in the classroom how things, how to do things, how things are run, and she brings that experience. And most recently, I want to get this right, she's the outreach, education, and communication, in charge of outreach, education, and communication experience at NASA Space Center. So very impressive. With that, she brings a wealth of resources and connections to really enhance our program. So I'll let you speak for yourself, Lauren,
Great,
but welcome,
thank
thank you, congratulations, and I'd like you to just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. So having grown up down the road, just right down there in Brunswick, I spent a lot of time in Strongsville growing up, from football games, the summer fair, to seeing the beautiful transformation of the middle school. And I know that Strongsville City School really proves to be one of excellent standards with high regard to quality educational opportunities that with students definitely at the heart of your purpose. I believe in providing deeper understanding and application of project-based learning with community outreach, rigor and relevant learning, community outreach as well, critical thinking, and social emotional learning to ensure that we support and nurture the entire and whole child. I'm very excited for this opportunity to work with such a distinguished district and in continuing the forward momentum and trajectory of supporting gifted students, families, and education, testing management, and the Model Mustang. So go Mustangs. And thank you. And to answer your question, I did play tennis when I was younger. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren will also be overseeing our testing as well. So along with gifted, that'll be a component of her position. And Lauren, I'm just so impressed in all the things you just mentioned, because we talked a lot about that through the interview process, and you included everything. So very excited to have you on board. Congratulations. So I won't make everybody come up and give us, in case they're sitting here wondering, what do I have to say? I will take the pressure off right now. I just would like you to stand up and be recognized. Starting with Katie Coleman is going to be a reading specialist, and she's going to be serving the students at Sarar Elementary. She will also have a component to our students that continue to learn online through our Lincoln Learning Program. She will also be supporting them more so in reading and literacy. So congratulations to you, Katie. Sarah Alfano is here. And Sarah is our new .4 science teacher. She's our long-term substitute for science. She helps out our union president, Ian Steffen, with his responsibilities and helping to cover his classes when he's needed elsewhere. So it's nice because she already knows the curriculum, knows exactly what's happening in the classroom, so she'll be able to make sure that those students don't miss a beat in his absence on occasion. So congratulations to you, Sarah. Thank you. Next, we have Olivia Stefanik. Hi, Olivia. Olivia will be our new music teacher at Sarar Elementary. So Olivia is throughout the process, Olivia is so passionate about music and just students in general. And the example she shared about student engagement in music I'm just so excited to see you teach. I can't wait. Next, we have Emily Gundert. And Emily is going to be our new second grade teacher at Kinsner Elementary. And you know, Emily, when you talk to people and you're going through this process, she said everything that we want to do and that we are doing. So a lot of the elementary literacy training that's going to be happening this year, Emily's already trained. She's already there. So she's going to be really advantageous to us to help everybody get on board and also serve almost like a coach too, because you've already been through a lot of that. So
thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Emily. Congratulations. Next, we have Allison Lebo. And Allison is going to be our first grade teacher at Chapman Elementary. I think you're just going to be a wonderful asset to the team over there, and you bring a wealth of ideas and creativity to the position. So excited to have you on board.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Yeah. And finally, last but not least, we have Christina Dara. And Christina will be our long-term substitute for AM/PM kindergarten, and she's going to serve students at both Moraski and Kinsner. And she's already gotten to know our students in our district as she's helping us out with summer learning this summer. So she's been actively involved in that every single day. And this is the last week, right, Christina? Yes. And she's still standing and smiling, so there you go. So congratulations. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. We're thrilled to have you on board.
I just think on behalf of the board, we want to echo that the enthusiasm is infectious, and we can't wait for the next school year, and welcome aboard.
Back over to you, Mr. Micko.
Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have the May 6th, May 20th, and June 3rd Board of Education meetings. All district video and audio recordings will be a permanent part of the minutes and available on our website. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Anagnostou.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Before I go on to our treasurer's report, I will let everyone know that it is incredibly exciting and interesting, and you are all welcome to stay. On the other hand, it looks like it's a really nice evening outside, so if you want to escape, you're allowed to escape also.
The one is summer school teacher.
See, cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's in summer school. She's a teacher.
So from my perspective, it looks like nobody's left. So George, we're ready for you.
Know how to clear a party. All right, so I have Number of items for your consideration tonight. A lot of them deal with our fiscal year end, which is tomorrow, June 30th, and our fiscal year open, which is Thursday, July 1st. So for the first item, item A, the financial report for the month ending May 31st, 2021, which can be found in Exhibit A. Item B is a correction to the May 20th board meeting agenda, which is for a Strongsville Education Foundation Middle School 8th grade teacher Chromebook grant. The original grant was for $2,600, but after discussion with the SEF, we're already purchasing teacher Chromebooks for the middle school. The math Chromebooks were for a higher power Chromebook, so the Strongsville Education Foundation will pay the difference between what we were going to pay versus the upgrade version. This allows them to utilize their funds for other grants as well. Approval for new funds for fiscal year 22, which can be found in Exhibit B. Each grant for the federal funds carries a special cost center, and for each year, that's cost center has its own individualized cost center. So that's what the new funds are for. In addition, it's also creating a student activities account for the upcoming freshman class, which is the class of 2025. This can be found in Exhibit B. Item D is transfer and advances of funds, which can be found in Exhibit C. There's a series of transfers. One is to cover negative fund balances at the end of the year. Any funds that carry a negative cash balance at the end of the year, the general fund must make a transfer to make those zero. Also, there's a few student activity accounts, which are transfers between the student activity accounts to close out any inactive accounts that have been idle for years. And lastly, advances of funds, which is for the federal grants, which are reimbursable funds, which we have to spend them first, then request for reimbursement. So we'll advance the funds at the end of the fiscal year to cover any negatives, and then once we get the funds back in the upcoming fiscal year, we'll do a return of advance back to the general fund for those funds. And then also for the transfers, there's also transfers for the general fund to the turf fund, which was established back in 2016 on the annual savings of what it would have been for grass of $35,000 savings that goes in the turf fund, and also the agreement we had for Southwest, which lowered our trainer fees to be used for the turf fund as well. Item E is student activity budgets. Student activity programs, uniform school supplies, public school support, internal Rotary funds, and local grants proposed budgets for fiscal year 22, which can be found in Exhibit D. Item E is the permanent appropriations for fiscal year 21, which can be found in Exhibit E, and this closes out the appropriations for the fiscal year. And you'll notice within the appropriation, there's a series of decreases in the appropriations, and the reasons for that is there's 3 compliance tests that we must meet, budgetary compliance that we must meet, and one is appropriations in the financial system must match board approval. Appropriations cannot exceed beginning cash plus estimated revenues, and appropriations cannot exceed beginning cash plus actual revenues. So for the other funds besides the general fund, we're decreasing the budgets to actual to ensure that the cash compliance to actual revenues do not exceed budgets. So that's the reason for those decreases. And then item G is the fiscal year 22 temporary appropriations, which can be found in Exhibit F. We have until, under the Ohio Revised Code, school districts have until September 30th to pass permanent appropriations for the upcoming school year. I like to do a temporary appropriation to start the fiscal year due to all the new hires that take place over the summer, any separations, contracts. So once we have staffing finalized in August, I can be prepared working on a better appropriation measure and present that to the board in September to be adopted by September 30th. And it also allows us to closer to tie it to the 5-year forecast as well in the fall. Item H is a contract for Forecast 5 Analytics, contract renewal and upgrade. It's a 5 lab. Forecast 5 is the program they use for the 5-year forecast and the month-end reports and analytics for the general fund. Also, through the use of ESSER funds, they have another program called 5 Lab, which is an academic module that will allow Dr. Ryba and his team the ability to track learning progress, student data, and to monitor closing the gaps on any learning loss. So the general fund portion is $22,596, and the ESSER portion is $24,750. The total exceeds $25,000. That's why it's on the board agenda for approval this year, and the contract can be found in Exhibit G. Moving on to item I, Food Service Management Company Contract Renewal. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the contract between Strongsville City Schools and Compass USA by and through its Chartwells Division for the management of the district's food service program be renewed effective July 31st, 2021 and June 30, 2022. We were able, this year was the fifth and final year of the contract, but due to COVID, the USDA issued a waiver where we could roll the contracts for an additional year. Any contracts were expiring this year, so we utilized that waiver. And this requires a separate vote.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Do we have a sense of who might replace Chef Mike at this point or not yet?
Yeah, so George and Jenny and Steve had an interview today, so I don't know if George or Jenny, you want to give an update on where we're at in the process?
Yeah, so we did, so Chartwells was able to find an internal candidate that is interested in the position. We met with her today, and before I say publicly, I don't know if Chartwells officially offered her the position.
Mm-hmm.
She's from a school district in is it Cincinnati area?
Cincinnati.
In the Cincinnati area as the assistant. She's originally from the area, from Lakewood, and wants to get back into this area and take over a school herself. She's by background, she's a former stockbroker, and then recently went back to school and got into the food industry, and got her, I think, degree in dietitian, nutrition, and she wants to be work in the non-public sector. So she seems like she has a good food background as well as business background as well. She does hold an MBA as well. So I think she'll be a good addition.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for George? Hearing none, George, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
and Mr. Micko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
And the last item I have for your consideration, item J, resolution of the renewal of an existing 6.0 mil tax levy for the purpose of current expenses. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that a resolution pursuant to section 5705.212 of the revised code submitting to the electors of the Strongsville City School District the question of the renewal of all existing tax levy for the purpose of current expenses be approved. The resolution can be found in Exhibit I. And from the last meeting, this is the second resolution to authorize me to place the renewal levy on the November 2nd general election.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll repeat what I said before. I have a three-part test for anytime we go to the taxpayer for funds, whether it's a renewal like this case or new funds. The first one, is it needed? And in this case, it is needed. Is it reasonable? It's a renewal. It's no new taxes. I think that meets the definition of reasonable. And can we look the taxpayer in the eye and say we won't waste your money? And I speak for the entire board. That is one of our prime directives, one of our something we always consider every day. We don't want to ever waste the taxpayer's money. So I think we can look the taxpayer in the eye and assure them that their money won't be wasted. So I'm happy that we're all in support of this. Please take the roll.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
and Mr. Micko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
And with that,
At this point, George, just so the board and the public are aware, at this point, will we get our number? Is that the next step?
yeah, so the next step is, I need to file it by August 4th. Obviously, I'll file it prior to that, hoping to file, Dawn's on vacation this week, so there's a few things I need to be finalized on the resolution. So when she returns next week, I'll file the proceedings with the County Board of Elections. And then the filing deadline is August 4th. And then sometime after August 4th, the Board of Elections will release the issue numbers.
We'll get our issue number, and then we will continue the conversation to earn the public's trust.
Right.
Thank you.
And with that, that concludes my report if there's no further questions.
Are there any questions for George? Superintendent's report. Dr. Iba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. A couple routine items for you. First of all is the Calamity Day Alternative Makeup Plan for 21-22. What this means is we have our preschool minimum hours and our half-day kindergarten hours of instruction are close to the minimum hours per year allowed. So if we have snow days where we have to close, and even though, this has come up in the past, even though we've done remote learning, we have contractual agreements that if it's truly a calamity day for weather, it will be a traditional calamity day. That we need an alternative to make up those hours of missed instruction rather than having students attend school for additional days. And so that's what you're voting to approve tonight, is that half-day kindergarten and preschool could utilize blizzard bags, which is at-home work, to make up for certain amounts of days. The second item is a contingency calendar. So every year we have to say, hey, if we go beyond those minimum hours, which we never will for any other grade, but if we do, that we have to select additional school days where we would make up those days. And so as you can see here, May 31st through June 6th would be the week after school is traditionally out, and those would be the makeup days. So any questions on Calamity Day or contingency calendar? Continuing on, I'm going to have Steve Bruckner, our operations manager, come up and share his report for the month. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. A couple of items here in the business services section. The first one is a vendor managed supply program. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education enters into an agreement between Strongsville City Schools and ALCO for the vendor managed supply program as stated in the exhibit for one fiscal year in the amount of $45,312, funding to be from the general fund, supplies, materials for custodials.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion?
I have one question. I noticed in the contract, Steve, that it said that it's going to take approximately 30 weeks to build this vehicle due to supply issues.
This is the custodial program.
Sorry, never mind.
That's okay. You and me both. You and me both.
I had a question.
That's a great deal.
Steve, with this contract, can you kind of just give a brief overview, understanding of how this is actually helping us and save money from a supply standpoint?
Sure. So this is the third year that we've been with this type of program. Before that, we budgeted the best that we could, but we knew there's a lot of factors that can make that budget go up and down. This is a static number that we're going to be getting. The nice thing about this deal is we have a plus or a minus. So if we go over by, it was 10% before, and that's the agreement that we have with them, 10% or 10% under, if we go 10 over, we don't get charged anymore. That's their window of error. If we go under, then we get the next year. For example, last year we were under about $6,000. We ended up getting some new machines. So the nice thing about this contract is we know what it's going to cost, and we have that plus minus ratio that's always in our favor. It worked out well this year because we were over. We've never been that far over before in the 3 years, but of course, due to the COVID pandemic, we didn't owe any more money at the end of it. So that's the advantage for the district in being this type of vendor managed program, is that we know what the costs are up front. I can budget that accordingly. I know what it's going to be unless something drastic happens. And I can't imagine anything more drastic than last year. But we're still in that window of not having to pay any more money.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
And Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries.
All right. The second item, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the operations manager be authorized to enter an agreement with Suburban Transportation Company Incorporated for the 21-22 school year for the transportation of special education and handicapped students within the district to in-district schools, also classes at schools out of the district. Transportation to in-district schools would be provided for students becoming homeless while attending Strongsville City Schools and now residing outside the district. This agreement is put in place due to the impracticality of transporting these students by Strongsville City School bus transportation. The next item, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the operations manager be authorized to purchase property, inland marine, boiler and machinery, crime, automobile, general liability, and umbrella insurance from Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. The agent is Todd Associates Incorporated, as endorsed by the Ohio School Council at a one-year contract price of and this is a change from the floor, $357,659.40 for the period of July 1st, 2021 through July 1st, 2022, which includes all school groups. Last year's cost was $327,368.65. And then be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education recognizes the groups listed there as authorized school groups, and they're in the Strongsville City Schools insurance policy. $357,659.40. All right, number 4. What everybody's been waiting for. The purchase of a F-350 Ford truck. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the purchase of one 2022 Ford F-350 truck from Harrison Ford Wellington at the quoted total price of $43,661.56, funding to be from the Permanent Improvement Fund.
Do I have a motion?
Shelley, you want to take this one?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Bissell, second by Mr. Roberts. I'm certain we have some discussion.
I really do have a question this time. The contract says there's, like, it's gonna take 30 months or something to build this.
30
vehicle.
weeks.
30 weeks, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
30 months. See, look, I'm just really, really excited. 30 weeks, so better part of the year.
Yeah.
Is there any advantage to waiting till the supplies are more readily available, or is it something we should just lock the price in now?
It's not really that much of an increase from what they were before, and we're
Okay.
at state pricing, so
Okay.
it's not gonna be drastically different because we're not having to worry about the middleman or anything like that. I mean, that price, if it was out of range, I wouldn't have brought it to you. So it really is not that much more than what they've been in the past. It's pretty incremental. The other thing is, the truck that we are replacing is getting quite old and rusted out, so it does necessitate getting it now, and then that way we can just rotate it through.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any concern that it's going to take so long? I mean, I don't imagine you anticipated it taking that long.
No, I didn't anticipate it taking that long, but all of our trucks are preventive maintenance is done on them every year with our mechanics, so I'm certain we can last the 30 weeks without it. We also want to make sure that we're getting rid of it where we can still get a good bang for the buck on the other side of it too. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to keep the high level of maintenance that we're doing with the truck for the time it has left with us, and then we'll send it off when appropriate.
Steve, can you just take a minute to explain, you know, the wear and tear on these trucks and plowing and salt and snow, and it's not, and the preventative maintenance plan, you know, you shared that it's rusting out, but why does that happen if we're doing our preventative maintenance?
Because no matter how much preventive maintenance we do, we can't beat salt. Salt just will destroy everything it comes in contact with. What we're starting to, and once it starts, it's not like you can stop the process. I mean, you're talking about body, in some cases struts that start to rust out, and it just becomes impractical to keep replacing them. What we're doing now, as an aside, it's an oil treatment. It's a coating that goes into the bottom of the trucks now that we've been doing that helps prevent the rusting out of the bottom. So we're hoping we can make the trucks last longer. But this truck's been on the fleet, I believe it's a 2011. So it's been on there for 10 years, so it's been getting hit with all that salt for 10 years, and the corrosion is just getting to the point where we need to go ahead and move on. And this is also part of the larger goal that I took on when with Keith Simic, whenever I took the position that we would replace these trucks, because they hadn't been replaced in 10 to 15 years. So we're taking good care of them.
How many trucks are in the fleet?
Oh, man. I'm going to say 11.
Oh, 11.
Yeah.
So you plan on rotating or getting one every?
What we were really aggressive at the beginning with getting them. Now we're slowing it down to one a year. But at this point, going into next year, Keith and I are going to start looking at, can we miss a year or two and recoup that money for other equipment that's necessary? We're in a really good spot. We're getting to a really good spot. I think we have one more truck that would be slated for the next year. Then after that, they're pretty new trucks that we've been able to take care of. And we're doing more with truck linings, and also technology is just better now with truck linings, like I said, with treatment of the undercarriage, where I think we'll be able to allocate those monies for other equipment as needed and not having to keep rolling them into the trucks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, George, take the roll.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Sui?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries.
The fifth item is the cafeteria adult breakfast price. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the adult breakfast price in the cafeteria be increased by 50 cents for the 21-22 school year. The price will be $3.25. Item number 6, cafeteria adult lunch price. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the adult lunch price in the cafeteria be increased 25 cents for the 21-22 school year. The price will be $4. Item 7 are some gifts to the district. Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Longley donated a Keurig coffee maker valued at $145 to Kinsner Elementary School. Ms. Erin Sullivan Lally donated $200 to be used for student school fees for a student in need. The Strongsville Giant Eagle Market District donated 19 cases of water for use by the graduates at the 2021 commencement ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Under curriculum, the first 3 items, we have a series of textbook adoptions for your consideration. These are all smaller textbook adoptions for advanced placement courses or art courses. So, and all of these have been recommended by professional staff and reviewed by the Citizens Curriculum Advisory Committee. So under number 1 is the adoption for the Advanced Placement Comparative Government and Politics as found in Exhibit O. Under number 2, it's the adoption of the Advanced Placement Human Geography textbook as found in Exhibit P. And number 3 is the adoption for 3-dimensional art and sculpture, which can be found in Exhibit Q. Under number 4, be it resolved upon my recommendation that the board enters into a project agreement with Ron Stewart and Associates LLC for consultative services for entitlement grant funds for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and that can be found in Exhibit R. And then under number 5, we have textbooks for College Credit Plus. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that the district pays for textbooks for students participating in College Credit Plus through Cuyahoga Community College at an approximate cost of $35,000 for the 21-22 school year. As a note, we are required by law to pay for the College Credit Plus textbooks for those courses. So that is on the agenda for your consideration. Moving on to the next page, we have 2 overnight trips that are after the fact approvals. So with COVID pandemic restrictions being released, a lot of colleges hold summer athletic camps or allow high school athletic teams to come on their campus. Based on that timing, things were solidified between meetings. So I granted approval for them to go, but the formal approval comes from the board tonight. So we've got a freshman varsity and junior varsity basketball team camp that was an overnight camp at the University of Findlay on June 16th to 17th. Transportation was via our school bus, and expenses were paid by participating students. The next trip was for our high school varsity football team to attend the Pitt Passing Camp, June 26th through 27th at the University of Pittsburgh. Transportation was via chartered motor coach, and expenses were paid by participating students in fundraising activities. And then moving on to upcoming trips for next year, we have 2 out-of-state trips for your consideration. The first is, upon my recommendation, permission be granted to the Strongsville High School Marching Band and Orchestras to travel to Orlando, Florida, to perform at selected venues at Walt Disney theme parks, April 18th to 23rd. Transportation will be via chartered motor coach, and expenses will be paid by participating students in fundraising. And then number 9 is for our choral students, that they are able to travel to New York City, April 19th through 23rd. Transportation will be via motor coach, and expenses will be paid by participating students in fundraising activities. And no students miss school on those dates. Those are during spring break. I believe the 18th is still a school day, but they are leaving in the evening. So that is the curriculum report. Any questions on that report? Under student services, this is an agenda where we had a lot of our annual approvals for students that may be attending elsewhere or agreements with affiliated schools. So number 1, be it resolved upon the recommendation that the board enters into agreement with United Cerebral Palsy Association of Greater Cleveland for special education and related services for placement of a student with disabilities for next school year for the amount of $92,138 as found in Exhibit S. Number 2 is the recommendation to enter into an agreement with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio to implement their positive education program for next school year, as shown in Exhibit T. Number 3 is a recommendation that the board enters into agreement with the Cleveland Clinic Children's Hospital for rehabilitation on behalf of its Learner School for Autism for a student with disabilities for next school year per the attached in Exhibit U. Number 4 is a very similar resolution, just for a different student, and that's found in Exhibit V. Number 5 is the recommendation that the board enters into a contract with Kids Link School LLC for placement of a student with disabilities for the upcoming school year at a cost of $82,500. Number 6 is that a similar resolution for a different student for the same amount, and that's found in Exhibit X. And number 7, again, different students, similar recommendation as found in Exhibit Y. We do have 2 foreign exchange students that we're recommending be able to participate at Strongsville High School next year, and that's tuition-free admission under number 8. It's that we allow the admission of next school year for a student from Germany to attend Strongsville High School, and then a student from Spain to attend Strongsville High School. And both students and different organizations are overseen by Mr. Wingler, a high school principal, and approved and recommended by him. So those are the items under student services for your consideration. Any questions in that report? Moving on, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jenny Pelko, for the Human Resource Report, and you have an addendum there as well.
All right, so I have various items for your consideration tonight under Human Resources. Starting with E1, we have the appointment of administrative staff. So again, this is Lauren Skoda, Coordinator of Gifted Education and Testing Management. We also have appointments for certificated staff members. We have the appointment of a leadership team member. Cindy Vaccarello will become my new executive secretary. So thrilled to have her. She has served in my office as a data input specialist for many years now, and thrilled to have her on board as the executive secretary. Appointments for certificated staff for additional time. Continuing under E1, appointments for certificated staff for extended days. Appointment for non-certificated athletic supplemental contract paid upon completion. Appointments for certificated supplemental contracts prorated. Appointments for summer school. Appointments for our summer lunch program. Under E2, change in full-time equivalents for certificated athletic supplemental contracts. Under E3, medical leave for certificated staff and medical leaves for non-certificated staff. Under E4, unpaid leave for certificated or non-certificated staff. Under E5, we have volunteer coach. And then we'll go to the addendum here. Continuing under E1, appointments for certificated staff. Appointment for a leadership team member. So thrilled to announce that Curtis Washington will become our new transportation supervisor. And again, sorry he is not here today, but I informed him today of his appointment. So, you know, he had another commitment, but he's thrilled about this position, very thankful for the opportunity. Appointments for extended school year. Continuing under E1, appointments for summer school. Appointment for certificated supplemental contract paid upon completion. Appointments for non-certificated supplemental contracts. Appointments for certificated supplemental contracts prorated. Under E3, medical leave for non-certificated staff. E4, unpaid leave for certificated staff. Under E6, resignation for non-certificated staff. Under E7, changes in status for certificated staff members. Changes in status for non-certificated staff members. Change in status for certificated stipends. Under E8, stipends for our webmasters for next year, stipends for our teacher-based team coaches for next year, and stipends for our technology coaches. And finally, continuing under E9, contract recommendations for our administrative staff. Under E10, administrative salary schedule. Under E11, administrative additional days paid upon completion. And under E12, we have summer work for those staff that are completing individual education plans and 504 plan developments. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Congratulations. I know it's busier than usual, especially with the additional staff that we're going to have for next year, but I think we're all excited to see the fruits of our labor this summer bear fruit next school year. That was tortured. We'll move on.
As you said, Mr. Micchio, thank you for that, and commend our administrative team, our teachers, our staff, and Jenny. You know, we spent, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 days interviewing almost all day. But that's the end of a process that went 2 rounds with a lot more people through, and we set that goal to get it wrapped up by, find the best candidates, but target June 29th, and they accomplished that goal. So proud of them and the work, and you know, the staff that we're going to bring into Strongsville City Schools is exceptional, so I'm excited about that. Dave, would you like to come up and do your correction, or you want me to take care of it for you? All right, so we got, under technology, we do have a correction. Be resolved upon my recommendation that we correct the May 20th agenda under number 1, paragraph 2, Power School, $13,500 increase for Power School, Performance Matter Analytics and Special Programs, and 504. It should be corrected for a total annual cost not to exceed $42,000, and that's found in Exhibit Z. And that concludes my report.
Any additional questions for Cameron? Next on our agenda is report on Polaris Career Center. Michelle?
Thank you. Just a couple of things to report tonight. Summer is pretty quiet typically for Polaris, but there are 2 upcoming things I wanted to share because they're kind of exciting. Polaris does a really good job of taking note of what careers locally may need a boost in their employee pool, and one of those is veterinary assistant. There's a big demand for vet assistants and technicians, and a lot of interest from our students locally. So Polaris is connected with local veterinarians to begin developing a program with college partners also to provide for further training. And the students will be able to see all what this program offers during the fall recruitment process. So if you're interested in vet assistants and you're in the high school range, keep an eye out for that. And secondly, you will see in your mailbox later this month, probably early July at this point, the Fall Polaris Adult Education Catalog, and they offer hundreds of classes. And Strongsville residents, I didn't know this, get a discount if you enroll in any of those programs. And then Strongsville employees are able to receive training classes at no charge to help with professional development. So if you are an employee, take a look. And if you're a resident, take a look. You might find something that you want to develop a new hobby or a new skill in the fall. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Report on legislation. Sherry?
Just want to mention that the budget is in the governor's hands now, House Bill 110, and it includes the school fair funding bill, which, we'll see tomorrow. The governor signs it. He has line item veto power, but we'll be able to see whether or not everything is approved. Well, our school funding formula is approved. So, and that concludes my report.
And I'll just echo, I think that's what is on everyone's mind right now is the budget and exactly what's in it and exactly what isn't, and we'll be paying close attention and acting accordingly. Board liaison reports. City Council.
There were 2 city council meetings in June. First was Monday, June 7th, and the second was Monday, June 21st. And they were rather exciting meetings. If you haven't been to a public hearing in a city, you might want to check it out. They're very lengthy, but you get to hear from concerned citizens, which is interesting. So those both regarded rezoning of property here in Strongsville. The first was kind of near the industrial parkway there near the soccer fields and beyond, closer to Boston that way. That was at City Council's discretion, so they voted at June 22nd. Votes were 5-2 to approve the rezoning there. So that will be happening, and the builder, I imagine, will begin their process. The second public hearing is a little bit different, and we're talking about the southeast corner of Royalton and Prospect. There's some vacant land there. That public hearing just happened on June 21st, and council gets to approve whether or not that goes to the ballot. So we as voters will get to decide whether or not that is rezoned from one type of residential to a different type of residential. So you can keep an eye out for their decision and then potentially on the ballot in November. Just a couple of upcoming events to keep in mind. July 4th, the fireworks will be happening at Fultz, so if you want to catch a seat there, go early, I understand. Homecoming weekend is the weekend of July 17th, so we're excited to have that back in the community. They have decided August 7th will be the movie night, which we were able to do 2 years ago, and fortunately we'll be able to bring that back this year. So look for more details to come on that. And then the rib burn-off will be August 12th through 14th on the square. The other thing to keep an eye out, just in case you're curious, is the clock tower will be under construction beginning in August and finish in November. So you'll see trucks at the corner there making some repairs. And finally, I just want to share our congratulations as a board and a school district with Jason Kepler. He's on the staff at the Rec Center, and he recently won first place for the Play It Safe virtual sports programs in 2020. He developed some virtual sports programs, including a fishing derby and a I think it was like a treasure hunt around the city, and he was recognized with a first place award for the creativity and involvement he got from our community. So congratulations, Jason. Thank you for working for our community and our kids. That concludes our report.
Strongsville Education Foundation. Laura?
Yes, I just wanted to start by thanking the Education Foundation for participating in our senior salute at the end of May. They were able to give out 18 scholarships. 11 of them were on behalf of community members, 3 of them for themselves, and 4 of them were endowed scholarships. The grand total was $16,900. So I just wanted to give them congratulations for doing that for our kids. And then they did have a meeting at the beginning of June. There was beginning grant discussion on a pre-K to K grant for student boxes with supplies that will help with assessments, and that is still being discussed. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Strongsville PTA Council, Sherry?
I just want to reiterate what Katie Hollenberger came today and spoke to us about the 5,600 volunteer hours in the pandemic, and I know the board, they're ready to start the new school year with the new board that they have selected. That concludes my report.
Thank you. OSBA Student Achievement, Seth?
Yeah, we have a couple of recognitions. Congratulations to Charles Lynn, Matthew Cornelius, Vardan Shah, and Alexandru Scarelli, is that right? Who are among the 7,500 students nationally receiving high coveted National Merit Scholarship Awards. So congratulations to them and representing Strongsville in such a high manner, so appreciate all their hard work. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Seth. Board committee reports. Finance Committee? Next meeting to be announced.
To be determined.
Yes.
Either August or September.
Yeah, August, I think you have.
Policy Committee, we finally are able to announce an exciting date of
July 13th,
July 13th.
7 p.m. in this room.
Excellent. Facilities Committee?
Yes, we were able to meet at the beginning of June. We discussed the removal of the sidewalk and chain link fence on the Allen'sville property and decided to move forward with that. And then we also spent a great deal of time discussing the pros and cons of updating our existing elementary buildings and discussing the 5-year plan for them. The committee has asked Mr. Bruckner for additional information. He will report back to the committee at our next meeting on September 9th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Laura. And then Business Advisory Council, their next meeting is to be announced. Next on our agenda is consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point means all items appearing in the agenda with asterisks are adopted in one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, we do have, for the record.
We need to vote.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to the next item.
No, we're getting there. We did the audible on business services, B3. The contract is $357,659.40. And the other, was there another audible?
No.
There was not. We did have the addendum, which is also incorporated into our consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Soe?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Dr. Ryba, timely information.
Well, just a congratulations to Mr. Binkley, Teresa Williamson, Dan Faust. We pretty smoothly transitioned to a new website the other day. And so it's up and running. What I've learned is if you have the old website bookmarked, it will come up as the new website, but it doesn't function completely. So just go to strongnet.org, reset your bookmarks, and things will be good to go. The website's good to go in there. So again, strongnet.org. When you open the website, it'll pop up to say, hey, be patient with us as we mitigate or move everything over. And there's a Google form link that appears if you're looking for stuff or can't find anything for questions, comments, and feedback. But once again, Dave, Teresa, and Dan have done a phenomenal job, a lot of prep work. If you take a look at the thousands of pages that were there, and our goal was how do we streamline and simplify our website, and they've done a great job of that. And so check it out, take a look, get used to the new format, and if you have any feedback, let us know. Last Monday, I sent out a parent update to all of our families, and one of the items in there was the board-approved school calendar. So just that's on the new website if you take a look. It's one of the quick links that's there. But just a reminder, the most immediate change is we've bumped the start of school 1 day later. So please make sure that we note that the first day of school for grades 1 through 9 and kindergarten orientation is Wednesday, August 18th. The first day of school for kindergarten, grades 10 through 12 and 1 to 9 still going is August 19th. And then preschool will be the last to officially start on Monday, August 23rd. But the full calendar is online on our new website as well. So that's what we've got for timely information for this month.
Next is Board of Education Other. Do we have any others? I will just quickly share, I attended, yesterday I attended the City Council's Economic Development Committee meeting. They did discuss the recent sale of the mall, and that's of interest to the school district also, so it was good for us to attend. And I wanted to publicly thank Jim Carbone, Jim Kaminsky, and Kelly Kosick for being part of that committee and making sure that we represent both the city's interests and the school district's interest. No, any other Board of Education others? Meeting notification, our annual board retreat will be held July 8th at 6:30 PM in this building, in this room. And our next regular Board of Education meeting work session will be held July 12th at 7 PM in this building, in this room. We do have reason for executive session under the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Salee?
Yes.
And Mr. Miko?
Yes, the motion carries. We will go into executive session at 8:15. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention and have a very happy Independence Day, and please enjoy it. Thank you.